Right. Straight into it. Episode 16. Welcome to episode 16 of the Chinksey Sports Presents the Premier League show. Another short turnaround. Had three shows in the space of 7 days. So it's been crazy preparing for this one. But we are here. And without any further ado, we are starting at Molyneux on Tuesday evening in a game between Wolves and Burnley. That Korean guy, Hwang Hee-chan, scores again. After he opened the scoring with a well-taken finish, the 27-year-old now has 8 goals this season, but I fully expect him to double that. Impressive former PSG man Pablo Sarabia came back into the team after missing the Arsenal game due to tactical reasons in order for Wolves to be more well-rounded defensively. A front three from four with Hwang, Cunha, Pedro Neto and Sarabia is a good front three and one that would cause any team's problems. This is yet another setback for Vincent Kompany after their impressive 5-0 win against Sheffield United last Saturday. Right, straight into the semi-derby between Luton Town and Arsenal. Ended 4-3. So yeah, that Wolves game was 1-0 to Wolves, by the way. 4-3 to Arsenal. Luton Town once again proved that they're no pushovers, but not without the help of Arsenal's on loan Spanish goalkeeper, David Raya. He'll be ultra disappointed after he allowed birthday boy Ross Barkley's tame effort to squirm under his body after a good bit of skill from the 30-year-old former Everton midfielder. He was also in poor form from set pieces and was at fault for Luton's first equaliser. Arsenal actually played quite well, but were punished due to the horrendous goalkeeping errors. They showed great grit and resilience to grind out the win, though, but were made to wait until the 95th minute when Declan Rice nodded in a delightful cross from captain Martin Odegaard to clinch the victory in dramatic circumstances, which extended their lead at the time to 5 points. The team that were directly behind them on that day, on Tuesday, were Liverpool, who on Wednesday travelled to Bramall Lane and they won that game 2-0. Sheffield United were spirited. Their fans provided a fantastic atmosphere, and returning manager Chris Wilder drafted in some new young players to both replenish and reinvigorate the squad. The so-called new manager bounce was in full effect. Liverpool were mainly subdued throughout and struggled to create many clear-cut opportunities, but took the lead after captain Virgil van Dijk, seemingly back to his best this season, volleyed in from a corner. The game was in the balance up until the 94th minute when Hungary captain Dominik Szoboszlai clinched the match to make it 2-0 to the Reds, which then closed the gap on leaders Arsenal to just 2 points. And because they play before the Gunners on Saturday, they're currently playing now, they could leapfrog them into top spot with a win against Roy Hodgson's Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park. Right, next game on Wednesday was between Brighton and Brentford, the B derby. Brighton got themselves a much-needed win, but had to show character to come from behind against a plucky Brentford side who, through Cameroon forward Brian Mbeumo, caused them many problems. Brighton are actually in half-decent form. It may come as a surprise that since September, they've only lost 2 games in 12. And those were away to Chelsea and Manchester City. So yeah. Brentford are not as good as Brighton, but are too good to go down and not quite good enough for Europe. So mid-tables where they should expect to finish come the end of the season. Following that was at Selhurst Park between Crystal Palace and Bournemouth. It ended 2-0 to Bournemouth, the Cherries. Crystal Palace's woeful home form continues. They seem to be struggling this season, and as I keep seeming to say every week, I think the issue is they need new and better players because things seem to have gone stale at Selhurst Park. There's a number of players that have been there for a long time. Joel Ward, Nathaniel Klein, Will Hughes, Jeffrey Sloop, what's his name? Jordan Ayew. Yeah, they need new players. They need to spend some money. They need to invest in the squad, in younger players as well. I think they need new midfielders and fullbacks because their squad is aging, with the likes of Joel Ward and Nathaniel Klein, like I mentioned already. I thought this game would be a draw, but I should have known better as Bournemouth continued their great recent form and now head into Old Trafford with a renewed optimism. Right. This game between Fulham and Nottingham Forest blew me out my mind out of the water. I couldn't believe it. I thought Fulham would win, but 5-0, I didn't see that. Five-star Fulham, led by Nigerian maestro Alex Iwobi, tore Forest to shreds, tore down the branches, tore down the leaves, with the midfielder grabbing himself a brace for his third goal in 4 games, which was a remarkable return. He now seems to have well and truly settled into that Fulham side. Now, and for me, he's probably their best player. Goal shy striker Raul Jimenez is now no longer shy. Bagged himself a brace, which will be good for him in his confidence because he hasn't really looked the same since his collision with David Luiz back in November 2020. Nottingham Forest, on the other hand, worryingly, have spent a lot of money in the last 2 years since their promotion to the Premiership and still look bereft of quality. Steve Cooper must be sweating on his future now because if this slump continues, he'll be gone. He'll be sacked. It can't continue like this. Next one on Wednesday was between Manchester United and Chelsea. It ended 2-1 to the Red Devils. I just knew that United would respond to their poor result against Newcastle because they had no option to. After being lambasted in the press, the players had to come out fighting and had to show their character. And they did that in fairness. I just knew that they would turn up for a big game, especially against the Chelsea team that they usually fare well against. Like I mentioned on the last episode, Chelsea have a terrible record against United, and that continued on Wednesday night. I couldn't understand how Chelsea were favourites going into the game with the bookies. United continued to just pour forward and press Chelsea and push them back. They controlled the first half and were the better team despite Bruno Fernandes missing an early first half penalty. Interestingly, the much maligned pair of Scott McTominay and Harry Maguire have been United's 2 best players this season, with the former bagging a brace to seal the 3 points for the Red Devils, spelling more woes for Maurizio Pochettino's men. Right, the game that I was really looking forward to during the week was Aston Villa and Manchester City. Ended 1-0 to the Villains. Villa had Manchester City on the ropes in the first half. They held on though. Yuri Tillman and Leon Bailey have taken the opportunities in recent weeks, and like I mentioned on the previous podcast, they managed to get into the starting lineup and keep their places at the expense of Nicolo Zaniolo and Moussa Diaby, who now have their work cut out getting back into the team, which is a good problem to have on the whole for Unai Emery. So maybe they'll get a chance to play in midweek in the Europa Conference League dead rubber, because I think they've won the group already. But yeah, I've never seen Bernardo Silva give the ball away so much in my life. Aston Villa showed bravery to take the game to City and dominated them throughout, completely backed up by not just the eye test, but most of the stats too. The only team I've seen go toe-to-toe with Man City successfully is Liverpool, and that's when they travel to Anfield. I've never seen Manchester City get outclassed and get ransacked like that, attack after attack after attack. Leon Bailey tore Vardy to shreds, and the Jamaica winger got the winner after great wing play. That's a mouthful to say. For me, he'll pose Villa's biggest threat to Arsenal this afternoon. It'll be interesting to see if Villa can replicate that performance in such a short turnaround this afternoon. We'll see. Right. Following that was Thursday's game at well, I'll start off with the earlier one, which was at Goodison Park between Everton and Newcastle. It ended 3-0 to Everton. This was the midweek result that surprised me the most, if I'm honest, because I did predict a 2-1 Newcastle win. How wrong was I? I thought Newcastle would edge it. How wrong was I? Everton, since losing to Man United after missing a hatful of chances, have now won 2 games on a spin and are now out of the relegation zone, dragging Luton back in there. They will now be going into Sunday's game against Chelsea bouncing. In fact, I make them slight favourites for that game because of their momentum, Chelsea's erratic form, and home advantage. I'm sure they'll think that they're more than capable of winning that one, provided that they replicate this performance. Newcastle, on the other hand, have had a strange season with remarkably positive results against the likes of PSG, Arsenal, Aston Villa, Chelsea, and Manchester United twice, to being spanked 3-0 by both Brighton and Everton respectively, indicating that they perform better in the bigger games. Oh yeah, and add to that the Bournemouth fixture, they lost 2-0, which was diabolical to say the least. Right, the last game during midweek was at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium between Tottenham Hotspur and West Ham United. And a game of two halves ended 2-1 to West Ham. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall in that West Ham dressing room at halftime because David Moyes must have said some real home truths because they were rubbish and they were subservient to Spurs in that first half. Jarrod Bowen has once again proved how good a finisher he is. If he keeps performing like this, he'll make it hard for Gareth Southgate not to seriously consider picking him in that England Euro 24 squad. When the returning Argentine Christian Romero scored in the first half, it was nothing less than what Spurs deserved. I thought that they'd build on that goal and kill off the game, but they couldn't find that second goal, which would have done that for me. One remarkable stat is that they've now taken the lead in each of their last 5 games and not one. That is absurd. So anyway, that is the last of the fixtures during the week. And now I'm going to move on to... So that was the last of the results during the week. And I'm going to move on to the upcoming fixtures, one of which is ongoing. I have no idea what the score is. But it's at Selhurst Park. Kicked off over half an hour ago. I've gone 3-1 to Liverpool. I just feel that Liverpool tend to concede consolations a lot. I can see them killing off the game early, potentially going 2 or 3 up, and then Palace, who have didn't like the look of their starting 11. I think they've gone for a more resilient, structured team, defensive, with the likes of Nathaniel Klein and Joel Ward at fullback, and then obviously they got hard-working duo of Jeffrey Sloop and Jordan Ayew, as opposed to Olise, who's on the bench. So I feel they're gonna try and stifle Liverpool, but I don't think they'll have enough to do that. So I'm going 3-1 to Liverpool, and I think Salah will finally get his 150th Premier League goal and his 200th goal for Liverpool today. Right. Following that is a 3 o'clock kickoff at Molineux between Wolves and Nottingham Forest. So Midlands derby. Obviously, Nottingham Forest are on the back of a 5-0 drubbing by Fulham. And obviously, Wolves have responded to their defeat at the Emirates last week with a narrow win against Burnley. Wolves have a very, very good home record, and obviously I expect them to win that game, so I've gone 3-0. Nottingham Forest are woeful away from home, but are starting to lose games at home, so I can't see anything other than a home win for the old gold and black outfit. Following that is the game between Brighton and Burnley. I think this is going to be a comprehensive win for Brighton. Brighton don't really keep clean sheets, but I think they'll get one today. I've gone 3-0. Burnley obviously got their win against Sheffield United. Comprehensive 5-0 win, but unfortunately they lost in midweek to Wolves. Didn't score, and I don't think they'll score today. So 3-0. Following that is interesting one actually at Old Trafford. Any any result here wouldn't surprise me, but I feel United will just edge it. Could have been a draw. I almost went 2-2, but I've gone 3-2 to United. I think it's going to be an end-to-end football. Bournemouth have got a lot of brimming young attacking players. I don't think they'll play all three. They usually play Semenyo, Tavernier, and Justin Cliver. I don't think you can go with those three at Old Trafford. I think probably Philip Billing will probably come in for what's his name, Justin Cliver. But yeah, there'll be a threat on the break. Obviously, Dom Solanke is in there. I think he'll get 1 or 2 goals. But nah, for me, I think United will edge it going into their make or break game against Bayern Munich on Tuesday, I believe. Following that is a game at Bramall Lane. Sheffield United, they looked reinvigorated on Wednesday. I watched that game against Liverpool. Obviously, new manager bounce in full effect. However, I don't think that's going to be enough for them to get anything against a Brentford side who will be smarting from their defeat to Brighton. Just ousted, just edged out in that one. But I think they're going to do the same to Sheffield United. 2-1 Brentford. Right, this one for me is the game of the weekend. If Villa can replicate that result against Arsenal that they got against Man City, it'll be an interesting one. It's a game that can go either way. For me, I've got Arsenal as slight favourites, probably 57 to 43 kind of thing. 55 to 45 in Arsenal's favour. I've gone for Arsenal to edge it 2-1. However, if Villa won this 3-0 or Arsenal won 3-0, that wouldn't be a surprise. But I just feel Arsenal have got more steel and determination about them. They also have a phenomenal record at Villa Park, and also were the last team to stop Villa winning, the last team to beat them. Villa, however, won 14 games on the trot, but I think that's going to come to an end this afternoon, so we shall see. Right, Sunday's fixtures, we have 4. First of which is at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium between Spurs and Newcastle. I've gone for 2-2 Desmond. I think it's going to be an end-to-end game. Tottenham are obviously not in the greatest of form, but however, they have been playing good in those games, a lot of those, especially against Chelsea before the red cards, and in the first half against West Ham, first probably half an hour against Villa. So they've been good in a lot of the games, however, they aren't getting the results, and that's what matters. Newcastle, on the other hand, tend to turn up for the big games, like I mentioned earlier, but I think it's going to be a 2-2. Following that is interesting one at Craven Cottage between Fulham and West Ham. West Ham got an absolutely fantastic result against Tottenham on Thursday. Can they replicate that against Fulham? Because if they play like they did in the second half, then they'll win. However, Fulham played really well at Anfield, were unlucky to lose, unfortunate maybe to lose, but they took the positives from that game into their game on Wednesday and they won 5-0 against Forest. So, taking all that into account, I'm going to go for the second draw, which will be 1-1. Following that is Goodison Park fixture between Everton and Chelsea. Toffees against the Blues. Chelsea, bit ropey, bit poor against United. I don't expect them to get anything out of Goodison Park, especially with the way that Everton are playing. The fans will be buoyed by the fact that they've actually climbed out of that relegation zone, and I'm sure they'll be now targeting top 10 football. Top 10, top 11, top 12 kind of area. And I expect them to beat Chelsea and to keep climbing the table. Right, last game of the weekend is at Kenilworth Road. Another top team in town to take on Luton, Manchester City. Really, I mean, if City aren't careful, the league can just go away from them. They're already 6 points adrift. and they need to get a win here, and I think they will. I've gone for a 4-0 City win, and yeah, right. See you next week. Thank you.